Rust Foundation. Anyone here heard of the Rust programming language? Yay! Okay, right, good. So we don't have to start there. Perfect. Well, so the foundation is only like 5 years old. We're still pretty young. The Rust language is still pretty young. We just celebrated our 10th birthday last year. As a foundation, I'm sure a lot of you understand with open source, a lot of projects, go to live at foundations so that they can get good support, so that they can be kind of better fundraised, better resourced, all these kind of good things. So obviously, as the steward, the official steward for the Rust programming language, it's our job to make sure that, we provide all of that good support, that we provide support for the package repository system, crates.io. And, we want to do all of this good stuff to make sure that everything is kind of sustainable. So this is both a pain and a privilege. It's a huge privilege being the organization that stewards the Rust programming language because it's really cool and it's really good. And it's going to do a lot of good stuff in the world. But keeping the wheels on the bus is no easy task. Again, the whole internet, you all have heard this, everything in open source, it's free as in puppy, not free as in beer. Like, there's a responsibility and an obligation to take care of the things that are free. And, keeping the wheels on the bus is pretty hard and it's pretty expensive. We've got infrastructure, crates.io, we've got core engineering that needs to be done. We've got to wheedle money and free stuff out of companies that make billions off of products built in Rust. We're responsible for compliance and legal regulations, financial regulations. The powers that be have finally cottoned on to open source and the fact that it's a thing and maybe we should be regulating it. The Cyber Resilience Act in Europe's coming down the line. That's something that we need to think about. And we also want to make sure that our maintainers are well supported, healthy, that there is well-being, that they're empowered, and that, that takes money too. But I think most importantly, as the official stewards, we're responsible for ensuring that in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, 15 years' time, people still want to use Rust, that Rust is still useful and productive for people that want to build in it. There has to be a language left for us to support. And if people are not using Rust in 5 years or 10 years, that means I have done a terrible job as the CEO. So we worry about all of these things. How do we do these things? Well, we need to kind of plan for this. This doesn't kind of fall out of the sky. We need to kind of figure out exactly, right, we need these resources to support X. We need these resources to support Y. We have internal and external pressures. One of the reasons I wanted to talk about strategy today is because a lot of people don't really think about the stuff that goes on behind crates.io or other package registries. They don't really think about the stuff that goes on behind actually getting a language to the point where you can use it productively. So in terms of obviously internal pressures, we have to be fiscally prudent. We can't just splash the cash. We have to make it go as far as possible in the most impactful way. We do need to have staff. It's very, very difficult to run a foundation with only volunteers. It can be done. Other foundations have done it very admirably, but I'm sure they'll all tell you if they could afford someone to do the paperwork, do the bureaucracy, they would take it. We need to keep up community relations. Again, these things just don't happen on their own. They need moderation, they need support. They need various other things to make sure that they can keep going. We want to facilitate connections and collaboration and events. These things cost money. And we've also got members, organizations join the foundation with the assumption that they're going to have an influence on how the language grows and how it's supported. And member organizations who are paying us sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars quite rightly expect something in return. So we need to be very responsive to them. On the external side, domestic and international policy is increasingly finding its way into influencing open source. I mentioned the CRA in Europe, but countries all around the world are looking at open source and figuring out whether they need to actually kind of get in and start regulating there, especially in the wake of, a few years of pretty bad supply chain attacks. There is an insecurity of financial support, not just for us, but for the people that fund us as well. Even the big tech companies, they only do a budget once a year. At the end of that year, it's entirely possible that they think, do you know what, we're feeling the pinch a little bit here. We're just going to defund the Rust Foundation. That's always a very real possibility. Technical and cultural shifts happen. Technology and the way we talk about it and the way we approach it is not the same today as it was 5 years ago, and it will not be the same even in 6 months or a year from now. And this kind of feeds into a lot of corporate pivots that I'm sure most of you here could imagine some of the corporate pivots that I'm talking about here. So in terms of building a strategy, it's not for me to say this is what we're going to do. I am the boss of the Rust Foundation, therefore I know what's best. I don't know what's best. I have some ideas, but this is open source. I want the community, I want the people who use Rust and value it to tell me what they think is important as well, because there's no point having a strategy if it doesn't actually represent what people want. So we went out to consult with people, we asked some key questions, where do we want to be in 3 years? How do we want people to see us? What can we do to get from where we are to that place where we want to be? What are the steps we need to take? What are the activities we need to do? What factors will affect this direction of travel? What out there could potentially derail this? And, one of the really hard questions, I think, for people in open source is what's critical and what's not. Everyone wants to feel like their kind of favored pet project is the most important thing in the world, but sometimes that particular project may be not as critical to a kind of overall direction of travel as something else. So that's quite a painful question, but we wanted to ask it because we wanted to get an understanding of what the community were thinking. And unfortunately, when you ask people big questions about what they want, you quite often get like a Dear Santa wish list. I want a pony and an Xbox, none of which really tells you what you actually, where you want to get to, what specific things you want to do. You just get lots of like, I really want this shiny thing. So we have to filter some of that out. So we sift contributions. There are ones that are, not so helpful, like nice to have, but not necessary, wildly expensive, kind of pie in the sky kind of things. These are useful to know because it is useful to know what people, what people's hearts desire, and try and kind of move it over into the helpful category, that, these things have tangible benefit. There is an obvious direction of travel. It would have some transformative impact. It's resource appropriate. So we kind of filtered everything out. And we kind of had a vision that emerged that we have our strategy online. You can see it on our website, but it kind of centers around these pillars. This is kind of what came out of the strategy consultation, that people want stable infrastructure. That's like absolutely foundational. We can't do anything without the infrastructure that underpins everything that we do. We need sustainable maintenance. I think in an open source conference, everyone here knows the pain of being a maintainer, especially one that isn't paid to do the maintenance of something really important that a bunch of companies make profit off of using. We are trying to fix this problem. We want to make sure that Rust is adopted, that it's at the edge of innovation, because only by that will we know that Rust has a good future. We need to maximize the membership. We need to make sure that the people, the organizations that are members are contributing, and we need to grow that membership to make sure that we can still fund sustainable maintenance and all these other things. And we need to empower the community to meet, to collaborate, and to do what they do best. So that vision emerged. Underneath there, we did some more consultation, and we set out these kind of key tasks. These are the tasks that hopefully will get us from where we are, or where we were, to where we're going in the next few years. I'm not going to read all of this out. Like I say, a lot of this is on our website, and I'm happy to talk through more of this But this is how we kind of break it down. And it doesn't matter if you're a foundation or a project or an organization, having this kind of breakdown is really, really useful. And all of this should be underpinned by the foundation itself having values and living them, demonstrating excellence in financial prudence, in being staffed and governed by a talented and committed team, and that, you know, the foundation itself needs to be viewed as stable, as professional, as effective, so that companies have confidence in us to actually get things done for them in Rust. So, and you know, if the world stays the same, that's great. You know, we've got this plan, of course, what could go wrong? But the world probably won't stay the same. Even since I wrote this speech a couple of weeks ago, the world has changed a little bit. I mean, it's a tech conference, AI, obviously. I have to say something about that. Having a strategy, you know, even that strategy that we worked on last year, AI has come on leaps and bounds since we wrote this strategy last year. And I have no idea where it's going to be in 6 months' time or a year's time. But this is going to materially change how we are implementing this strategy of work that we have planned out. We know this is a thing. We don't know exactly how we can respond to it because we don't know where it's going to be. You know, also war, everything else, you know, there's lots of massive bummers going on in the world right now. Geopolitics really does affect us in open source. We have to think about where contributions are coming from. We have to think about attack vectors. We have to think about, you know, who is where or who is in what country, which key maintainer suddenly finds himself on the wrong list of trusted people just by virtue of their nationality. These are things that we actually have to worry about, and we have no idea what's going to happen next. The last week or so has been quite surprising. Who knows what next week will bring? We have to be able to kind of respond to this. There are a lot of unknown unknowns. So we have to build in resilience as well. We have to avoid baking in risky dependencies. We have to avoid over-reliance on key personnel. You know, the bus factor is obviously something that we worry a lot about in open source. We have to diversify our income. We can't just be reliant on one or two companies. We have to partner and collaborate and spread risk around and create room for maneuver in trying to achieve all of those things that we said, these are the things that we need to do to get to where we're going. So, you know, we think about this in terms of, okay, what are these risks? How can we develop contingencies for these? What do we do if the worst happens? And I would just sort of finish by saying, you know, even doing all of that, it's difficult. 6 months later, an awful lot of the time, these strategies feel like clunky and out of date. As I said, even with the changes in AI, this is already feeling like a little bit out of date to me. But it still provides the basis for a good unified narrative. Whether you're a project or a foundation or an organization, having a strategy enables you to talk really fluidly about where you're going and what you're doing and why. And it enables you to say what you're not prioritizing. It makes it easier for me to say no to stuff, having a strategy, because it means I can be less reactive. It means I can say, look, that's super interesting, but I have to prioritize, and my priorities need to be in the strategy that I have agreed with my board and with my community. And it demonstrates to stakeholders that you're taking things seriously. You know, you're taking these things seriously. Stakeholders can have some confidence in what we're going to do because we have laid it down here. They know that for the next 3 years, we are prioritizing these kinds of things, like Rust for inference in AI, for instance. And, you know, it enables us to work towards shared goals. Everyone knows where we are. Everyone knows what's important to us, how to talk to us, how to frame things. The community understands where we're going. So yeah, it's I think a really valuable exercise, even if it feels like a paper exercise. I would really encourage you to invest in doing strategy work. So that's it from me. Thank you very much. It's been great to be here. And yeah, I'll pass it back to you. Thank you.